So as you learned from Rick's talk, React is now a tool of choice for building cross-platform apps because it's with React Native, it's well suited for handling the user interactions across Android, iOS, and web. But to build these apps, we also need very good APIs for interacting with the unique native capabilities of each platform. And we need APIs that provide these capabilities of Android, iOS, and web in a unified way so we can create apps using a single code base that target all of these platforms. So in other words, it would be nice to have some batteries included. But when I think about it, I don't really want these kind of batteries because they're all different shapes and sizes, and all are installed a bit differently. And they also run out of power every few months, so then need to replace them with new batteries, which may make you tired. I'm not going to say the JavaScript F word, just tired. And when we talk about native libraries, there's also another problem, because if I just wanted to use a library that my coworker wrote or that I found from GitHub and just build my app using JavaScript, I still need to compile those native libraries. Well, that's not the problem. Let me just update my Xcode first. Oh yeah, I also needed to download the Android Studio. But yeah, that's kind of solved because I already downloaded them. But then the next thing, coming from a web developer background, I also need to link these libraries. So this is really simple. Just open the Xcode, then just drag this thing here. Oh, and this thing, you need to add this thing to the path, and then drag this other thing here. Yeah, really simple. And then do this to every library that you add. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a tool to make this easier. It has existed for a couple of years now, so it makes things easier, but it doesn't work all the time because it relies on modifying the Xcode project in various ways, and also when you need to upgrade to a next React Native version, that diff that you get in the Xcode project is going to be quite messy to merge. But OK, we managed to link the libraries now, and we're ready to build our app. Yay! Oh, sorry, just hold on a second. So ideally, we wouldn't be compiling all the native code all the time when what we mostly want to do is just use JavaScript to build our app. Even if we have iOS developers and Android developers who are working on the native code, and I'm a JavaScript developer, I need to compile the app every time there are some changes. So this is not ideal. So maybe it would be better if we just had one battery. Just one library that would have everything. And then we would compile an app with this library, put the app on a phone, and use that to develop the app. And no more Xcode, no more Android Studio, no more compiling. Just work with JavaScript and use the APIs included in this big library. So what do we want in it? So just put all these things. They should be everything we need and more. Does this sound familiar? Oh yeah, yeah. It's Expo. But I didn't come here to just promote Expo, even though I have some Expo stickers if you want, ask me later. Because this is not the end of story. This is how Expo started. This is the Expo SDK. It's open source. It's great. It's most of the time what you need to build an app. And you can get pretty far with just a set of libraries that are included in the Expo SDK, as is proven by our successful users, including some unicorn companies that build their app using just Expo SDK and APIs included in it. So when you're using Expo, everything's good. But there are still some cases when you need a library, a native library that's not included in Expo. And so far, the answer to that was you need to eject. And then you're basically back to doing the Xcode stuff and doing everything I talked about before. And sometimes even worse, because now you also need to compile all these libraries, even though you might not need them. So this workflow was not ideal. It's the experience of ejecting from Expo into ExpoKit, which was the first solution to using Expo outside the Expo client, was not great. And there were also people who were happily using just React Native, but they came to us and asked, "Oh, could we use this one library, one API from the Expo SDK?" And then because the SDK was built as this monolith that had some core libraries included inside, and then the individual APIs depended on those libraries, it was very easy to use individual APIs outside the full SDK. I think some people even took parts of the open source code base and forked them into separate libraries because they just wanted to use some individual API outside an Expo app. So this was not so great. So we decided to tackle this, and right now the Expo SDK has been split into lots of individual packages. And these packages can be used in Expo apps, but they can also be used in any React Native project. And they support Android and iOS, and most of them already support web as well. There's quite a lot of them. This is just a small sample of the list. And these are called Unimodules. So as I said, you can use Unimodules in any React Native app. To add them to an existing app, you can go to Unimodules / React Native Unimodules on GitHub and just follow the instructions. And the thing is, you just need to set up Unimodules once, and then adding more Unimodules is just a matter of calling npm install, and that's all you need to do. So you can npm install the expo-camera. There's no need to fork the repository or do anything like that. You can install expo-random. This is not just the placeholder name I came up with. It's an actual Unimodule which adds a cryptographically strong random generator. There are expo-sensors for all the different sensors included in phones. So how does this work? How can these models be automatically linked and installed when all you need to do is npm install? So on iOS, we make use of CocoaPods, which is the de facto standard tool for managing and building dependencies for iOS apps. So CocoaPods has this pod file where you specify your dependencies. But for Unimodules, all you need is this one line. Use Unimodules, which is sort of like a macro that exists in the React Native Unimodules package, and it adds all the Unimodules that you have npm installed to the project. For Android, it uses Gradle, which is the build tool React Native uses for Android. And the same way, only these two lines include Unimodules projects, and add Unimodules dependencies are needed. So how does this magic work behind the scenes? What's inside those functions? So these functions just go through your node modules folder and look for files named unimodule.json. And inside the file is just the name of the package and a list of platforms for which native modules need to be included for this package. So there's no web here because but for web there are no native modules. And you can also have Unimodules which are only JavaScript. So in this case, the platforms would be empty. So the macro for Gradle or CocoaPods looks through the node modules folder, looking for any Unimodule JSON, and then adds those as dependencies to be compiled for those platforms. And importantly, it just doesn't only look for the direct dependencies that you have installed, but also deeper transitive dependencies. So you can have Unimodules that depend on other Unimodules, and also those dependencies will be automatically added. So now we've covered Android, iOS, and for web, there isn't anything special we need to do because there are no native modules. All the web Unimodule code just uses the browser APIs that are available. So Android, iOS, and web are all covered. And to make it easier to set up Unimodules in a brand new project, we added this Unimodule template to expo-CLI, which is a tool for developing Expo apps. So you can also use it to set up a React Native app. If you choose this bare minimum template when running Expo init, or you can run it with the npx like this if you don't want to install it. When you choose the bare minimum project, what you get is exactly the similar project as you would get from running React Native init, which is the command to create a default React Native project. So you get the same project, but with the configuration for Unimodules added. And then you can npm install any Unimodules that you want. So if you're using React Native, go ahead and give it a try. There's a lot of high-quality React Native libraries that you can now use, even if you're not using Expo. And React Native is also converging on these similar ideas. After I added the bare minimum template, I wanted to make the upstream React Native support CocoaPods by default and include that in the default React Native template just to make it even more similar to the default React Native template. So in the next React Native version, there's going to be CocoaPods by default, so that all the iOS dependencies can be managed using that. And Gradle for Android was already included by default. And the React Native core team and the React Native CLI team have been working hard to bring auto-linking to React Native, which works using the same principle as the auto-linking for Unimodules that I just described. So, so in the next React Native release, you're going to have native modules that are automatically linkable, and this is going to be fully compatible with all the Unimodules as well. So there's just one more thing that we need to fix. I said the talk was about React standard library, but in fact, what I have described here is more of a React library standard. And what Unimodules brings to the table is modules that are auto-installable and auto-linkable, cross-platform. They should work the same on iOS, Android, and web. And Unimodules provide a modular foundation for building native libraries. Before Unimodules, each native module had their own set of core foundational tools, like, for example, file system access was something that was separately implemented in each native module, and those implementations were not compatible. So if you installed multiple native modules, you would get as many implementations of those lower level primitives. So this is also something that can be made easier by Unimodules, because when we split the SDK into Unimodules, we took all the lower level libraries and made them their separate Unimodules. So Unimodules can also build on other Unimodules. I'm really looking forward to what can become of Unimodules, and I encourage you to try them out. And if you're authoring React Native libraries, please look into how you can make new Unimodules. It's going to be great. Thanks.